Hello, loved ones, and happy Audre Lorde's 90th birthday. I am so honored and excited to be with you all for this epic read-a-thon. Thank you to Marianne at ZAMI NOBLA for inviting me. Thank you to Counter Narrative Project, and thank you to Charis Books, my favorite bookstore in the entire universe, for being part of this event. And I am Dr. Alexis Pauline Gumbs. I am a proud Audre Lorde scholar, and I've just recently completed a biography called Survival is a Promise, The Eternal Life of Audre Lorde. And I'm going to share an excerpt from that as our contextualizing for the reading that you'll be doing together today. And I chose this particular excerpt because, well, for a few reasons. I wanted to honor Audre Lorde's father. I'm dedicating my participation in this event to my father, who is the reason I moved to Atlanta and the way that I got to be part of the Charis community and Charis books, and in particular the young women's writing group at Charis is how I first learned about Audre Lorde, and I am forever grateful. And not everyone knows this, but Audre Lorde's father was really her first bookstore. So of the 58 chapters of this biography, which I think of as 58 different possible ways to tell the life story of Audre Lorde, a wonder of the world, really a wonder of the universe, I chose this chapter because you may be reading some of the words that Audre Lorde wrote about her mother today, but there's a lot less out there about her father, and this is one way of understanding who she is. This is chapter 14. A book has a weight disproportionate to its size. A book wields power like no other physical object. Byron Lorde taught his smallest daughter this, not with his words, but with his actions. Byron, nothing if not money conscious, brought books home. First lesson, books are nutritious. Use books. Supplementing his wife's frequent trips with the girls to the underfunded local library branch, Byron Lorde would carry home whole pallets of books. He would wait with the owners of used bookstores at auctions, bid on random assortments of books, and bring home what Audre Lorde would later call half garbage, half classics. Ravenous reading was not just a metaphor. There was a hunger Byron Lorde supported and cultivated by buying books in bulk for his children. Byron's daughters sorted through the piles with their hands and their eyes, and they were not only interested in the classics. They were interested in the mysteries, the science fiction, the Charter's crime novels. By high school, Audre, the daughter who looked most like Byron, supplemented the collection herself, wandering through the Fourth Avenue world made by the same used booksellers who bid against Byron for those pallets. She felt at home, sifting through wares on sidewalks and in the rental storefronts of 20 different used bookstores on one street. Audre chose books for her own aesthetic reasons. A French geometry book, a yellowed anthology of the Romantic poets. The poet June Jordan once wrote that this was part of what she and Audre had in common as West Indian children in New York. They grew up, quote, reading thousands of pages of thousands of books. A book could feed you, or at least clarify your hunger. Second lesson, a book is an exception to the rule. Audre remembers only one time when her father sided with her against her mother's disciplinary action. It was over a book. Audre had ordered a scandalous historical romance novel called Forever Amber by mail. Linda Belmar Lord was not the only person who thought this book was too risque for a young woman to read. Forever Amber was banned in 14 states. The Massachusetts Attorney General, first to ban it, presented a tally of the references to sexual intercourse, 70, the out-of-wedlock pregnancies, 39, and the abortions, 10, in the book as part of his argument for why a book that someone on his staff had read so carefully and closely, reluctantly, repeatedly, should be banned. Byron, who as a rule left everything about the proper raising of young women to his wife, intervened this one time because it was a book. He did not believe that any book could bring harm to his daughter. He believed, quote, if it is written, she can handle it, that you must not stop someone from reading any book. Language was powerful in the house of the Lords. And Audre learned something from this one small victory. A book can be an escape route in a restrictive microculture. Pages and pages of black loopholes, openings to squeeze through toward freedom. So, the young woman with Byron's face began to write her daily poems. At age 14, during a week when she had probably also brought dinner to her landlord father, she wrote a poetic mission statement. I want to know the beauty of my own house. I want to have the knowledge that when my life on earth is done, that I have left something behind for others to carry on. That's us. But what was the weight of books for Byron? What made it worth waiting at an auction next to men who would never have hired him to work in their bookshops, who would have protested if he wanted to live on 4th Avenue above their storefronts or to rent apartments there to his black clients? But he will wait and bid on pallets of books, bear them aloft on his 6'4" frame, rest on the stoop, and then again in the hallway while he finds the one of his many keys that would open the door to his daughters, who are also waiting. They know by now that the vast majority of the words they'll get from him will be the words in the pages of these books. What might books have given Byron, the 15-year-old runaway sailor, after working long days and nights between shores? What might books have offered the outside child dumped at his father's house at 7 years old? What was that book that changed everything for him? Which book became a place to hide, a place to grow? Who taught Byron how to read? What formative experience convinced him it was worthwhile not to go to the office one Monday, but instead to accompany his daughter to school and demand that she be allowed to sit for the entrance exam for the prestigious Hunter High School for girls? And was it faith or literacy that Byron held on to a few years later as he died in the hospital reciting the Lord's Prayer? The most we can know about what books meant to Byron Lord is what we learn from the life of his daughter. In her first published author's bio in 17 magazine, Byrons Daughter notes that her treasures are 2 books she found at the used booksellers on 4th Avenue. In the second author's bio, also in 17, written while she was exiled in Stamford, Byrons Daughter laments being so distant from her guitar and her collection of books. She doesn't mention what else she left behind in New York when she moved to Connecticut. Her dying father. As an adult, Audre explains, I knew, no matter how far I transgressed, if I really wrote, if I really distinguished myself, he might not like it, but he'd respect it. And that's very different from my mother. I could have gotten the Pulitzer Prize at 13 and it wouldn't have meant much to her if I came home late, but it would have to him. Would have. But death didn't wait. For her father to see her win prizes and acclaim, she would have had to achieve all that recognition while she was still a teenager. She would really distinguish herself in decades to come, but by then it was too late. He was gone. The first time Audre Lorde's name appears in an actual book, her father won't see it, or hold it, or celebrate. But her name is anthologized in print alongside a poem that describes Byron's hand on the doorknob, his many keys, how everything changed when he walked through that threshold. In 1968, Byrons Daughter sits in her high school friend and first publisher Diane DePrima's kitchen and folds and staples her first book of poems. In 1974, that youngest daughter of three-time immigrant Byron accepts her nomination for a National Book Award for a book called, appropriately, From a Land Where Other People Live. When Byron's daughter's own daughter comes home from school wounded, Audre leaves her in the doorway and runs to the bookshelf to find the perfect words. That's Byron's granddaughter, Elizabeth, the accomplished doctor, who says years later, sometimes poetry can be first aid. In 1977, Byron's daughter answers Barbara Smith's question about whether it is possible to be a Black lesbian feminist writer and live to tell about it by writing a book. In 1980, that book is ZAMI, by the way. In 1980, Byron's daughter responds to Barbara Smith's lamentations about the Boston murders and the racism in white feminist movements with 4 words: "We need a press." That became Kitchen Table Press. And yet, when interviewers comment on how prolific Byron's daughter is, she never agrees. For example, in an interview with lesbian feminist journalist Carla J., Audre insists, "I don't think I'm prolific at all, Carla. What I am oppressed by constantly in myself is that there is so much to do that I am not yet doing, that I have not yet done. If I had my druthers, I'd have more time. I'd add 10 more hours to the day." In 1898, 5-month-old Byron Lorde survived the Windward Islands hurricane. In 1989, his daughter Audre salvages her precious library out of Hurricane Hugo's floodwater in St. Croix. She spends the next 5 months rewriting her life's work by lantern while the island runs on generators. And though cancer steals her weight, her face looks less and less like Byron's. Byron's daughter stands defiant and proud as New York's first Black woman poet laureate, offering an acceptance speech that is really a political challenge about United States military funding, which we need to be challenging also right now. How Bayesian of her. In the last summer of her life, Byron's daughter dreams of her next book. She wants Kitchen Table Press to publish it. She wants to call it She Who Survives. Audre, used books. One day, someone asks Audre what she would say to her father if he could hear. "Hey, look," she says, "you really ought to be proud of me, 'cause I'm doing it. I really am." Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have such a wonderful day of reading. I look forward to celebrating in person at Charis when the biography comes out, which is August 20th of this summer. And I'm just so grateful to be part of a community that could offer Audre Lorde's example to me when I needed it. This is my copy of the collected poems of Audre Lorde's Falling Apart that I bought from Charis when I was in high school, and it has been my refuge. It has been my salvation. It has been my guide. And I know that whatever you end up reading from Audre Lorde's beautiful canon of work, it also will restore and transform you. Thank you for letting me be part of this moment. Much love to each of you. Bye.